Hare Krishna. I am very grateful to be with you on this historical event of the 108th Prerna Festival. My special gratitude to all of you for coming. This unusual topic has been assigned to me. Actually, the same topic was assigned to me last year at the Cambridge Union of the Cambridge University. And somehow or other, I guess the message came here. How life was so simple when apples and blackberries were only fruit. And at Cambridge University, they asked me to speak on that subject and speak about the book I wrote, The Journey Home. And I had to confess that I wrote The Journey Home on an Apple computer. And I must say it wasn't very simple. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, my Param Guru, the beloved spiritual teacher of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He emphasized that the foundational quality of a true devotee is simplicity. Without simplicity, bhakti cannot be real. It cannot be deep. What is simplicity? In one sense, simplicity means that we don't need a lot of things to be happy. We're content with simple things. Watching the sunrise, and then waiting some time and watching the sunset. These are very simple joys in life. Hearing the birds singing in the trees, being on the banks of a river, contemplating the messages and the wisdoms of nature. Simple relationships. Affection is a simple thing. A child is by nature quite simple, especially when they're young. They just want to be loved, and they just want to love. These are simple things. Doesn't cost money, doesn't need scientists to research, doesn't need all sorts of technological updates. To love and to be loved are the simple gifts of life. And ultimately, when we connect to our love for Krishna and actually realize Krishna's love for us, there is nothing more satisfying than in whatever situation we're in, we can be happy. When we are agitated, lonely, bored from within, then we need all sorts of distractions to cope with it. But however many distractions, it can, like an intoxication, it can divert our attention away from that emptiness within. But it can't fill the need that we have. And this is a serious problem. instead of understanding what the real problem is in human society, what we really need and what we really want, we try to find distractions to somehow or other preoccupy our mind and preoccupy our life with things. As we often say, in an evolved human society, people love people, and they use things. But unfortunately, the way the world is today, all too often, people love things. They need things. And they use people to get them. Like that. Believe it or not, that was not rehearsed. That is a symptom of a very shallow life. Simplicity is in the natural gifts that God has given us. We're happy. And we want to share those gifts with others. In experiencing that Krishna consciousness within us and wanting to share that with others through our compassion, through our integrity, there's actual satisfaction because it's receiving love and giving love. And when our relationships with each other are based on those principles, that's a simple life, based on high thinking. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's the story of Prahlad. According to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and our Srila Prabhupada, he was so much the personification of simplicity. He was a child of 5 years old. And he heard from his guru, Narada Muni, when he was in the womb of his mother. And what did he hear? Kaumara echaret pragyo dharman bhagavataniha. That Krishna is the real goal of life. Nate vidu swaradagatam habishnu. And when we make that connection to Krishna, we can be happy in any situation. And he had such a simple faith in that instruction. His father, Hiranyakashipu, I think you all know the story. He was a very, very powerful tyrant, a Rakshasa, Asura. And he hated God. Why did he hate God? Because of his envy. He wanted to be the proprietor, he wanted to be the controller of everything. And if you believe in God, you understand that actually that's God's post. But Hiranyakashipu was extremely powerful. And he asked little Prahlad, what is the best subject you learned in school? Now, simplicity also means no duplicity. We're just honest. It doesn't mean we're rude. Sometimes people think to be honest, you should be blunt in a way that you just criticize and offend. And Prahlad was totally respectful. He honored and loved every living being, including his father. But in a very palatable way, he was honest. Takes a lot of faith. When Hiranyakashipu, whose worst enemy is Vishnu. And he asked Prahlad, what did you learn in school? And Prahlad said, the best thing I learned in school, best of the demons. But he actually said it very respectfully. It's not what you say, but how you say it. That's sometimes have the effect. Prahlad could call his father best of the demons, and his father, oh yes, yes. Because he said it with respect and with affection. And he said, as far as what I have heard, a person who is too much attached to this illusory sensual enjoyment, trying to be the controller, trying to be the enjoyer, trying to be the proprietor, is like a person who's fallen in a deep, dark well where there's no water. And my dear father, that's you. Therefore, you should go to Vrindavan and worship Krishna. That's quite simple. That's what it was in his heart. He very respectfully spoke it. Hiranyakashipu couldn't believe what he was hearing. He laughed. He said, who has spoiled the intelligence of my favorite most son? And he told Prahlad's teachers, make sure you train him properly. Well, then he came back. He learned the subject. He was so respectful to his students, to his teachers, that his teachers thought he was the best of all students. And they wanted to be favored by Hiranyakashipu. So they dressed up Prahlad very nice and brought him in. Hiranyakashipu put Prahlad on his lap. Tell me, what is the best thing you learned in school? Prahlad, many slokas. He said, my father, one who is too much attached to egoistic, materialistic enjoyment cannot realize Krishna, either by himself or by the help of others or by the combination of both. There's only one way. Sravanam kirtanam Sravana kirtana smarana bandhana pada sevana dasyate pujana saki jana atmani vedana. That you should follow my father the 9 processes of devotional service. Hear about Krishna and chant Krishna's names and remember Krishna and pray to Krishna and worship Krishna. Become a friend to Krishna. Surrender everything to Krishna. But my father, the only way you could do this is you have to cover every limb of your body with the dust of the feet of those who love Krishna. That was too much for his father. Kill this enemy. He is not my son, he is my enemy. Hiranyakashipu said, even though a limb of your body is very dear to you, if that limb has an infectious disease, you either have to cut it off or that disease is going to spread and kill you. So even though this boy of mine is my own son, because he's a devotee, he must be destroyed. So many ways he tried to kill little Prahlad. But what was Prahlad's simplicity? Nadanam na janam na sundarim kavitam vajakatisha kame mama janmani janmanishwari bhavatad bhakti rohite kitva. He didn't ask Krishna for anything. He was happy. Now, it should humble us when we hear this story. Would you be completely happy being thrown in a pit of venomous snakes, hundreds of snakes? All the hoods are raising, they're going, and you're thrown in. If you see one snake a distance away, you become afraid. Prahlad had no fear because he had a simple heart. Just like a child, when a child is afraid, when they're in the arms of the mother or the father, the child feels very fearless, protected. So you see, Prahlad just had this simple faith. He always felt that he was in the arms of the Lord. So he was happy. He was thrown in fire. He was fed poison. He was cast into the bottom of the ocean. They tried to kill him in so many ways, and little Prahlad was so simple. He never once asked, Krishna, save me. He never questioned, Krishna, why are you doing this to me? His simple heart was, Krishna, I'm yours. Maro virago vijo icho tohar nitya dasa prati tua adhikar. Thakur Bhakti Vinod, he offered this prayer. My Lord, if you want to protect me, protect me. If you want to kill me, kill me. Makes no difference. I'm yours. I'm your servant eternally. That was the simple faith of Prahlad. That was the simple standard of Prahlad's happiness. That he never asked anything for himself. He simply trusted. Eventually, Lord Narasimhadev came and solved all the problems. And then Lord Narasimhadev asked Prahlad, you have given your life to me. You have remained so faithful under the most difficult circumstances. Srila Prabhupada writes, the greatness of a person has to be estimated by how that person tolerates provoking situations. Anyone could be great when everything is going nicely. But integrity is when we're really challenged and we maintain the simplicity of our values and our standards in life. We never let go of what is sacred, even in the face of temptation or fear. So you have done so much. I want to give you anything. Ask for anything. I'll give you wealth, I'll give you kingdom, I'll give you mystic powers, I'll give you liberation, I'll give you entrance into my eternal abode. Ask anything. Prahlad's simplicity. He said, if I ask anything of you, I'm not your devotee. I'm just doing business with you. I'm not a businessman. What is it? Vanik? Is that the word? He said, I'm your devotee. The only thing I want is to remember you and to serve you. But if you insist on giving something, give my father liberation. Forgive him for all his atrocities to so many people and all of his offenses to me and everyone else, and give him liberation. And as long as there's anyone in this world who is deprived of real happiness due to forgetting you, let me remain in this world to serve them, to help them, to understand the goal of life. Narasimhadev told Prahlad, not only you, but many, many generations of all your forefathers and all the people who are your descendants, they will all be liberated because of your love. And then they made Prahlad the king. Now that's not such a simple situation. Kings have to rule over citizens, they have to deal with everyone's problems. But Prahlad had that same simple heart. He was living in a royal palace. He was sitting on a throne. He had the finest jewels and the finest clothes. But he wasn't attached to any of those things. He was happy with the simplicity of loving God and being loved by God and sharing that love with others. And one day Prahlad went into the forest with some of his confidential associates. And they happened to see a very unusual person. The person didn't have any clothes on. He was just laying on the ground. He looked like a total madman. But it takes one to know one. So ordinary people would see this person and think, what a useless soul. Just laying on the ground. he had straw and dirt and stuff all over him. But Prahlad understood that this person had a very pure heart. And he was not doing anything for his economic survival. Can you imagine that in Mumbai? He didn't have a job. He didn't even beg. He just laid there. But Prahlad was interested because even though he didn't have any means of sustenance that ordinary people feel they require, he was kind of fat. And this was really like a contradiction. And Prahlad asked him, you don't work, you don't do anything, but you're not even skinny, you're kind of fat. And you look so happy. You don't have any of the things that everybody wants. And you look like the happiest person in the world. Can you tell me? You know, what is it that's in your mind? And the person, he explained that I have traveled through many lifetimes. Sometimes I'm an insect crawling around. Sometimes I have feathers and I'm flying in the sky. Sometimes I'm an animal. I've had so many families, I've had so many parents, I've had so many children. And I have come to this human form of life. And in this human form of life, I have passed through times when I was a king, like you, when I was a multi-millionaire business person. I've passed through lifetimes where I was a simple sadhu. And what I have realized, that no amount of material adjustments could ever bring sustainable happiness. Real happiness has to come from this simplicity of valuing the inner treasures of God's love, of Krishna's love, and sharing that with others, in whatever capacity we're in. It really doesn't make any difference. Vamanadev was a little beggar. He went to Bali Maharaj. And he said to Bali Maharaj, I've come as a beggar. And Bali said, oh, you are so nice, you're a little tiny Brahmin. I'll give you anything you want. See, Bali Maharaj was the grandson of Prahlad. So he had certain instinctive nature. And Vamanadev said, give me 3 steps of land. Bali said, 3 steps? I can give you your own estate. I could give you your own country. I could give you your own planet. Why do you only want 3 steps? Why are you depriving yourself? And you're a dwarf. Your steps are so tiny. Vamanadev said, if one is satisfied within oneself, one's satisfied either with everything or with nothing. I'm satisfied within myself. All I want is 3 steps. But you're not satisfied within yourself. So even though you're the king of the universe, you're still not satisfied. So just give me 3 steps. Of course, they were very unusual 3 steps. But he didn't keep anything. He just took everything away from Bali and gave Bali what he had. That spirit of love, that spirit of surrender. Sharanagati. Atmanivedanam. This sage that Prahlad was talking to told Prahlad, I have seen the little bumblebee just going from place to place, collecting pollen and putting it in the beehive, and working so hard to put it in the beehive, his whole life. And then the beekeeper just picks up the whole honeycomb and takes it all away. In the same way, people work so hard for things. But eventually, in the form of death, everything is taken away from us. So why are we struggling for those things? Now, interestingly, Prahlad listened very carefully. It's not that Prahlad left his wife and left his children and left his kingdom and laid on the ground and, and became fat. Prahlad went back to his kingdom. And with all the royal opulences of His Majesty, he had the same simple spirit as that person who was laying in the forest. Simplicity. And society evolves when we value the simple gifts of God, of nature, and of others. My mother taught me this lesson. On her birthday, somebody would give her a pearl necklace. Myself, I forgot it was her birthday. I saw somebody give her something, so I wanted to give her something. So I ran in our backyard, and went to her rose garden and stole one of her roses. And didn't even take the thorns off them. And I'd run up and say, Mother, here. This was when I was a little boy. And she'd cry. She'd cry. She was so happy. That rose was more precious than the pearl necklace. And she always said the same thing. It's not the thing that brings us happiness. It's the thought that counts. It's the love in which it is given. Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhakta prayachati. Krishna is so simple. He says, if you give me even a fruit, a flower, a little water, or a leaf, if it's offered with love, I will be completely satisfied and happy. In Mahabharata, Duryodhana invited Krishna for prasad, or bhoga, whatever. And he made such grand arrangements for Krishna. He was living in a magnificent palace, and he had everything decorated to receive Krishna. He had bands playing, he had a meal cooked by the finest cooks on plates made of gold and silver, bedecked with jewels. He had gifts of jewels and silks. Royal reception. But he He wanted to satisfy Krishna so that he could get something from Krishna. That was his motivation. Krishna just walked by his house. He would not even look at those things. If it's offered with an ulterior motive, it's meaningless. And he went to Vidura's house. Vidura just lived in a small cottage. And Vidura wasn't even expecting him. According to some commentaries, Vidura wasn't even home. His wife was home. And Krishna comes for lunch. And Vidura and his wife, they didn't have anything in their house. They found a banana. And they were so nervous, they peeled the banana, threw the banana away, and gave Krishna the peel. And Krishna ate it. And he said, I am completely satisfied. Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanat. We're all part of Krishna. We all have that characteristic. We're all Satchit Ananda. Our nature is we are simple. To love, to be loved, to have meaningful relationships, to live with integrity, wherein we actually feel satisfaction in what we're doing. If we lie, if we're duplicitous, if we cheat, if we are cruel in the way we do what we do, it hardens the heart. It pollutes the mind. It agitates us. And yet we're thinking that these things are going to make us happy. Yes, Prahlad was a king, but he had a simple heart. And he was a completely perfected, liberated soul. It's not that we have to give up our position. It's not that we have to give up our wealth, our skills. We simply have to use them with a simple and pure heart. So, as far as apples and blackberries, today there's such a craze over technology. Progress in science, medicine, technology can be extremely beneficial as long as we utilize them with a proper perspective. If we lose that foundational perspective of our real values of life and our very spiritual basis, then what happens is we just need more and more and more. And I don't know much about computers, and I don't know much about cell phones, but people have them, and then as soon as a new one comes out, then you're in misery. Because this one isn't any good anymore. I have to have the new one. It has another feature. Or it has 64 features that are improved. So, there's this whole consumerized mentality where we just somehow or other you'll be happy the more you are expert at consuming. Now, like Prahlad, yukta vairagya, if we have a quality life, then we could use this technology. It's not that technology uses us. This is the secret of happiness. Are we dependent on technology, or are we utilizing technology for a higher purpose? You know, we have computers and we have word processors and we have, all kinds of self-publishing books and everything. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, do you know how they wrote their books? They didn't have Apple computers. They didn't have BlackBerry cell phones. They would etch Sanskrit verses that they would compose on palm leaves or on tree bark, and they would have to process it. It's not that they would go to they wouldn't go to Buleshwar to get to a palm leaf shop. They would collect the leaves from the trees themselves and process them and write on them. And Jiva Goswami, he wrote over 400,000 Sanskrit verses. Who could do that today? Even the most prolific novelists who have all sorts of computers and secretaries and everything else, they cannot write as much as Jiva Goswami carved on little palm leaves. But the message, it's transforming people's lives even 450 years later. So we can utilize these things, but what we have to be very careful of is to understand how it is affecting the quality of our lives. Today, with all our super jet airplanes and our rocket ships and our microchips and all of our cellular phones and everything else, is the quality of life actually improved? Is there less greed? Is there less envy? Is there less hatred? Is there less prejudice and bigotry? Is there less stress? Is there less mental illness? We have, every year technology is surpassing anything beyond human imagination in science. But the suicide rate is as high as it's ever been. Mental illness is one of the top 3 causes of suffering and death in the world. It wasn't like that before. Due to unnatural, stressful, polluted type of lifestyle, practically 1 out of 3 or 4 people get cancer. Heart disease. One of the greatest profit-making ventures in the world is antidepressants. Different type of chemical processes to somehow or other fall asleep. And so much fighting. And so much lack of trust. Is life improving? It is not. It's going down. We could go to the cinema theater and put on those little glasses and see 3Ds and everything. I don't know, I don't do that, but it might be nice. But it used to be we could go to a river and see crystal clear water and beautiful flowers and we could drink the water from the river, and we could bathe in the river. Today in India, I've seen it. People go to holy places to go to a river to become purified. And as soon as they got out of the river, they take a bath in their hotel room. To get purified from their purified bath. You know, they travel all the way to Vrindavan to go to Keshi Ghat and bathe in the river, which is black and bubbly and foamy, and it's basically the sewage and the industrial waste of Delhi. That's the holy river in Vrindavan. But still, we have faith. It's the holy river, and we're supposed to take baths, so we take bath, and we say our prayers, and then we go out, and then we go to the municipal water place and bathe ourselves. How wonderful it was when the rivers were pure, when the forests were pure, when the air was pure, when the food we're eating is pure. With all India's incredible economic development and all of India's software engineering progress, they're good things. But we have to evaluate. I read in a newspaper, a Western newspaper, about the poison of Indians' vegetables. The okra, what's the word, bindi, is something like the amount of toxin pesticides and toxic chemicals in the average Indian bindi is 800 times more than what is acceptable in Europe. Simple life means eating a nice, healthy piece of bindi. And you're nutritious and it tastes nice and you're happy. You see, according to the Bhagavad Gita, there are three modes of nature. Sattva guna is goodness, which is especially it's the power of maintenance, preservation. Rajaguna is passion, creation. And tamaguna is ignorance, destruction. Now, if we're in business, if we're in education, if we're in technology, if we're in science, if we're in politics, if we're swamis, we have to be creative. So that Rajaguna is there. You know, to maintain a family, there has to be some passion. But the Gita warns us, we must balance Rajaguna, passion, with Sattvaguna, goodness. If we don't, the natural outcome will be then our passion is affected by tamaguna, which creates destruction of our values. To have a spiritual foundation in the mode of goodness is so important in our lives. When we are performing our work in this world, our creative, passionate activities. Otherwise, without that balance, it will naturally become destructive. Destruction of human values. From a spiritual perspective, there is not an environmental crisis in the world. There is not an environmental crisis in the world. There's a human problem. There is a crisis of spirit. Because we don't understand real human values, it's that crisis of spirit that's polluting the environment. The environment itself is friendly. So yes, this balance of simplicity with our creative, determined efforts within this world is the key to happiness and the key to a quality life. To appreciate what we have, rather than always yearning and being anxiety about what we don't have. That's a simple life. One time, Srila Prabhupada was walking with some of his very senior leaders of our society. And they were showing him a new project they were developing. They were building a temple, they were building different types of residential houses, they were doing all kinds of agricultural things, landscaping, and they were showing him all these things. He was walking with his cane. And then he pointed his cane into a field and looked at them and said, "Are you blind?" And they looked around. And where he was pointing his cane, it was just a field. Prabhupada said, "Are you blind?" And they were looking like, "What are we supposed to, is Krishna dancing there? Is there some supernatural miracle that Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochana, because his eyes are anointed with the salve of love, he's seeing that something that we can't see?" And they were really trying to understand the esoteric, mystical revelation. Are you blind? Can't you see? He said, "Can't you see?" They didn't know what to see. So Prabhupada shook his head and he hurried across the field. And he bent down and tightly closed a water faucet that was leaking. And then he came back. He said, "That is Krishna's energy being wasted." He said, to be grateful for what God gives us, it's not a matter of whether it belongs to us or not. It's not we should only be kind to who is in our family and what is our property in our name. The whole world is a gift of God to everyone. He said to be grateful and to not waste. Prabhupada said, that is Krishna consciousness. To be actually conscious of Krishna. So simple, but so deep. And when our relationships are based on these simple values, we can trust each other. There's a very large crisis of trust in this world. And it creates so many problems in relationships. Because you can only be trusted when you're trustworthy, when we're faithful, when we have a higher integrity than just what the mind and senses are always demanding. So as technology is spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning into higher and higher dimensions. We have to balance that with what is actually required to have quality in life. Things alone cannot give us quality life. Appreciation, gratitude for natural gifts, for each other, and for Krishna's grace, that gives quality life. And when we use our high education and the incredible resources that are available in the world with that spirit, we could be instruments of enormously positive change within the world. And for us, making that inner connection to the simple essence of life can actually be fulfilled by sincerely chanting God's names. Srila Prabhupada would tell us all a devotee needs to be happy is to chant Hare Krishna and have a little prasad and a place to sleep. That's all we need. To serve Krishna, to serve society better, we're willing to fly in airplanes. We're willing to live in palaces. We're willing to have nice clothes. We're willing to drive in cars. We're willing to use blackberries and apples and Microsofts and everything else. But that's not where we're getting our happiness from. We're using these things to share what we have. Or to get more to share what we have. Compassion. And that balance can easily come. Prabhupada said we're at one point, if you read The Journey Home, I used to really like to live in jungles. And the whole time I was in India, I never slept indoors. I slept either in caves, on riverbanks, or under trees. And then I went to a community of my Gurudev in America. And there was an old farmhouse. It was dilapidated. It was about 150 years old. And I used to beg and just get some rotis or some chipped rice when I was in India. They were serving everyone, every night, popcorn. And I thought this was so sinful that I'm sleeping in a house with a roof and I'm eating popcorn. So I told one of my godbrothers that I was leaving. And he said, "Why are you leaving?" I said, "There's too much sensual enjoyment here." He looked at me like I was completely mad. It's just all mud and it's freezing cold in the winter and there was no heat. He said, "Nobody has ever left here because of too much sensual enjoyment." I said, no, that's honestly why I'm leaving. And I was being honest. He said, "What kind of sensual enjoyment?" I said, "Sleeping under a roof in a house and eating popcorn." He said to me, he quoted Prabhupada. He said, "Srila Prabhupada taught us that if you can best serve Krishna sleeping under a tree, then you should not be attached to living in a palace. But if you can best serve Krishna living in a palace, you shouldn't be attached to living under a tree. He said, your Maya, your illusion, is you are too attached to trees. So I stayed. Now, I was so convinced by Prabhupada's words that I even ate extra popcorn. But if we're tasting the sweetness of Krishna's love through the chanting of Krishna's names, then we can be in this world but not of this world. And then, whether we're eating apples or doing emails on apples, or whether we're eating blackberries or talking to someone in another continent on a blackberry, we could be happy. We could have a meaningful, beautiful life. Chant the holy names. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. I do not know if that was the subject I was supposed to speak on, but thank you. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much, Maharaj.
This clapping is a very simple form of technology.
So everyone has expressed their gratitude and appreciation through this simple technology. And we are very grateful that Maharaj has extended himself and shared his realizations and inspired all of us. This evening we have some wonderful guests with us. Ms. Suvalakshmi ji, Ms. Rohini Subedar, Mr. Prem Raheja, Mr. Mayur Shah. Prem Raheja is also accompanied by his good wife, Mrs. Payal Raheja. We also have Mrs. Dimple Jain, Dr. Sunita Kshirsagar, Ms. Padma Nayak, Dr. Anand Gokani, Mr. Amal Tiwari, Mr. Rajul Agarwal, Mr. Sudarshan Bindal, Dr. Shubhangi Parker, Mr. C. Subramaniam, Mr. Prashant Jain, Mr. V.K. Mehra, Dr. Gaurav Rathod, Mr. Ajay Pishoradi, Mr. Joy Mitra, Dr. Leelavati Bage, Dr. Praveen Rathi, Dr. Saurabh Rathi, Dr. Anjali, Mr. Nikhil Upadhyay, Mr. Gaurav Bali, Mr. Ayush, Dr. Mayur, Mr. Manoj, and Mr. Aspi. We are very happy that all of you have joined us this evening for this wonderful Prerna Festival, the 108th Prerna Festival. Let us express our gratitude to all of these special guests by loudly chanting Haribol. We would like to welcome all newcomers who have come this evening for the first time for a Prerna festival. We request you to please stand up on your seats. Whoever has come for the first time, so let us extend our gratitude and welcome to all of them by loudly chanting. So, on the April 5th to 7th, thank you very much. Please be seated. On April 5th to 7th, the IYS is organizing a camp on Anartha Nivritti, and this is going to be held at Govardhan Eco Village, Vada. So please register at bit.ly/IYS. The details are there at the notice board or anyone you are connected with in the IYS department. So April 5th to 7th, that's a weekend, and there is a camp for the IYS at Govardhan Eco Village. IYS Yatra to Jagannath Puri. So as all of us know that His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj is taking us to Jagannath Puri this July. So 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th, we are going to have Katha with His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj as part of our Yatra. And then 10th is the Rath Yatra, and then 11th, 12th will be where the Lordships go into Gundicha. So the IYS Yatra has been organized from July 9th to 13th, and ticket bookings have opened, and please book as soon as possible and fill the Yatra form available with the IYS preachers. And on the occasion of 108th Prerna Festival, there is a special discount on the journey home at ₹100 only. And IYS zone-wise pamphlets have been printed and available at the stall below. So now if any of you would like to have any... Okay. So anyone has any questions, you may please raise your hands and we'll send out the mics for a question and answer session. Any questions? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for your wonderful lecture on the topic. I just wanted to ask, you said that our creative passion should be balanced with the mode of goodness also. So when we can understand that this balance is getting disturbed, how to understand this balance? Because many of the times we try to bring new ideas in preaching and many other things, and try to share something with other people, outside people. But many times we feel that it's not the balance, we feel that it's not getting mixed up properly. So how to understand?
The mode of goodness is seva. And the passion to serve is bhakti. When we are serving the Lord. And when we are motivated by greed, envy, arrogance, anger, that is destroying our consciousness. So Krishna explains in Gita, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavaratam rasopyasya param dristva nivartate. That we can overcome these lower tendencies when we experience something higher. That is why satsang, associating with saintly people, kirtan, chanting God's names, japa, Katha, Sravana, these spiritual processes, meditation, prayer, they ground us in the transcendental mode of goodness. And then we can work extremely hard. You see, in Bhagavad Gita, the mode of passion isn't that we're working hard. The modes of nature is really based on our knowledge and our motivation. There's charity in the mode of goodness, in the mode of passion, in the mode of ignorance. To give what is good for people at the right time that's actually going to benefit them is the mode of goodness. To give charity to get some tax write-off or to get some fame and prestige by having your name on something, that's charity in the mode of passion, because it's selfish. And to give the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time that's not actually good for them is charity in the mode of ignorance. So it's not the act of giving, it's the consciousness in which we give. Hanuman is Shuddha Bhakta, pure goodness and pure devotional service. It's not that Hanuman was just sitting on a riverbank meditating and praying. He was burning cities down. Yes? He was, Hanumanji, every part of his body was being used in Krishna service, Ram service. He was using his eyes in Ram service. He was using his arms. He was using his legs. He was using everything. But how do you use your tail in Ram service? Hanuman wanted to use everything Ram gave him in his service. So as a monkey, a tail is a very important part of a monkey. What was he doing with his tail? So his desire was fulfilled. Ravana, he said, monkeys are, he wanted to kill Hanuman. Vibhishan said, no, you cannot kill a messenger. Monkeys are very proud of their tails. Light it on fire and let him suffer and slowly die. Hanuman was really enlivened. They wrapped up his tail and they lit it on fire. And Hanuman, I could use my tail to my heart's content in Ram's service. He jumped from rooftop to rooftop to rooftop to rooftop and just hit the roof with his tail, like, and then the whole building went. Now that's quite activity. Yes? He wasn't sitting on the bank of the Kaveri River chanting Vedic hymns. He was constantly chanting Ram's names. But on the basis of that chanting of Ram's names, he was constantly connected in his heart of heart with loving devotion to Ram. And therefore, he was working harder than anybody could work, constantly. But it was transcendental, because it was motivated by love. It wasn't motivated by greed. And even his destruction was transcendently constructive. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mataji, yes.
Maharaj Pranam, kindly accept my humble namaskars at your lotus feet.
Namaskar.
And it is my dream come true to see you so closely and listen to your lecture. and I am a beginner, so my question may appear a little silly or very simple or whatever. But when I am trying to go to Krishna, I expect that Krishna should make it at least little bit easy for me. He should at least remove small hurdles from my path, so my movement towards him will be little more faster. And they say that a bhakt is never like a pendulum. He is strong and stable. When I am wishing to be a strong and stable in the bhakti, is it wrong to expect from Krishna to help when I am in crisis? I am crying because when Rukmini gave hot milk to Radha, the boils came on Krishna's body, it seems. When he can love Radha, I hope little bit he can love me. And he can make it little bit easier for me, because I want to surrender totally, and I'm begging, please help me. And that process somehow had started long back when I was 5 or 6 years old child. I had seen the movie Bhakta Prahlada, and I was extremely scared of cockroaches, so I used to sincerely chant Narayan, 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 so he will save me from the cockroaches. And today
the real question is how to save the cockroaches from you. Krishna loves you a lot.
No.
And
no,
we
yes,
have
today the whole day I was miserable. Sudhanidhi Das Prabhuji, he's somewhere around, he has made me comfortable. But is it wrong to expect from Krishna that please look at me here, I'm here, please look at me and help me to serve you better, help me little bit, make it little bit easy for me. I'm begging to you that please help me to rise in this Krishna consciousness.
Thank
and
you.
I don't wish to have one more life. I want to utilize this life to achieve what you have achieved.
Simple heart is not what Krishna will do for us, but what we are willing to do for Krishna. That is true bhakti. Otherwise it's conditional bhakti. If we're asking Krishna, we could ask Krishna to remove obstacles. But the greatest obstacle is that obstacle of the ego within ourselves. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told that the obstacles on the path of bhakti are our best friends, because they help us to turn to God with feeling. If the path is always easy and just the way we like it and just the way we want it, we'll just be pious. But sharanagati, the actual spirit of taking shelter, will never happen. It's those testing times that Krishna is showing great mercy, because he's giving us the opportunity to actually seek shelter. Yes? When you were young, did you cry out Narayan's name more when there was a cockroach or when there wasn't a cockroach?
I used to chant throughout.
But I think it was more intense and sincere when there was a cockroach. Otherwise you wouldn't remember it so many years later. So those obstacles help us turn to God, but we just need nice association and nice education in what bhakti really is, so that we can transform obstacles into blessings. Bhakti is about transforming obstacles into blessings by seeing the potential within it. Queen Kunti, she had so many obstacles. Vipadashantu tashashva tatra tatra jagat guru. But when all the obstacles were done, Queen Kunti prayed to Krishna, let those calamities come again. Because when those hardships come, I have no one to turn to but you. But when those calamities aren't there, I become very complacent. So it's not that we pray for calamities, but in this world, they will come. So instead of making deals with God that, make things easier for me and I'll be such a good devotee and I'll give you nice donations and I'll do you nice seva. Krishna, in whatever situation, I'm yours. It is in that spirit that we could actually taste that bhava, that love. So thank you.
Puji.
You are wonderful. One more question and then we should have, yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, you didn't speak anything on being humble. Means, is being humble and being simple altogether different? And will it be always possible to show simplicity in all the circumstances?
Even while he was fighting a war, he had a simple heart. The key to success is to have a simple heart. Even if we may be embroiled in the most complicated circumstances of this material world, which sometimes we get implicated in. Sometimes conflicts come among loved ones, sometimes difficult economic situations, sometimes natural disasters could make life extremely complicated to deal with things. And the Bhagavad Gita tells we should not run away from complications. We should not run away from challenges. But we should face them with a simple heart. A heart of devotion. A heart of integrity and character. A heart of seva. Love and devotion to our Lord, to Krishna. And we can do that. A simple heart can face every situation effectively and grow. That's called simple living and high thinking. Otherwise, it's not just a simple physical life is enlightening. Because before there was any kind of technology, people who were living in natural forests were having wars at each other and killing each other with spears and fighting. And yes? I used to watch monkeys. They're really simple. They don't have computers. They don't have cell phones. They eat blackberries. They eat apples. But I've seen some of these monkeys. They are so totally obsessed with having sex with another monkey. But the problem is somebody else wants to do the same thing. And I've seen battles and wars and kicking and biting and scratching and practically killing each other. And they're just eating blackberries and apples. Yes. It's not that they're enlightened. They live a very, very simple life. Simple heart is what's crucial. valuing what is sacred. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
And that simple heart is
Maharaj,
manifested when, with humility and gratitude, we cry out the names of the Lord.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Now we will have kirtan. Thank you very much.